Hi, we're Ariel,
And Michelle,
and
and
we're
we're
the
the
Board
Board Game
Game
Tutors.
Tutors. Today, we're going to be doing part 2 of our Just the Basics video series for the board game Castle Panic. Let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
So, in the last video, we described basically how deterministic combat works against these three basic bad guys in the board game Castle Panic. But now we're going to go a little more in depth about how movement works and how the monsters interact with and destroy the castle structures.
Because that is the monster's goal in this game.
So Michelle's going to go ahead and start.
Okay, so the monsters start out in the forest ring when they come on the board. The only exception to this is during the first round, when you set the game up, you're going to have monsters in the archer ring. That way the first player can attack them on their turn, hopefully, if they have the right cards. Because you can't attack monsters while they're in the forest ring. You have to wait for them to come out of the forest.
Right.
And so then at the end of every turn, of every player's turn, the monsters are going to advance. They're going to move one space forward in most cases. So just like that. And so since this is a cooperative game, the game basically plays against you. So that's why there are automatic things that happen with the monsters, because no one's playing as the monsters. So at the end of every turn, they move forward one space like we just saw. So after a few turns, they'll have moved up to the swordsman ring. And so we're going to use one of these guys as an example. But here, this is how they all would have moved up to the forest ring.
Eventually, after so many turns. So let's use this goblin.
Okay, so imagine that this goblin is here in the swordsman ring. When it comes to the end of this turn where he's been sitting in the swordsman ring, he would move forward and hit the wall. The wall disappears as soon as it's hit, just like that. And the creature that hit the wall loses 1 hit point. In this case, the goblin only has 1 hit point, so he's gone. Now, say it was an orc.
Okay, let's switch him over here.
Okay, if the orc hit the wall, because he has 2 total hit points at this point, the wall is gone, and he lost 1 hit point, but he's still there with that 1 remaining hit point.
And that 1 hit point is pointing toward the castle at all times.
So that way you can see how many hit points are left. The one pointing toward the castle shows that. And so the orc is now in the swordsman ring, and he's going to stay there because his movement was to hit that wall. So now he stays there until the end of the next turn.
So that was basically a sacrificial move on the part of the wall. It kept him out for 1 more turn.
Right, so you have 1 more chance to attack the orc in the swordsman ring. Then the next player's turn would end, and now it's time for the orc to move again. So he moves forward. He hits the tower this time because there's a tower there. Now the tower is gone. The orc loses his remaining hit point when he hits that tower, because you lose 1 hit point when you hit a structure if you're a monster. So now he's gone.
He's dead. Now what happens if the troll did that whole escapade?
Okay, so we're putting the wall and the tower back. So the troll, imagine that he still has 3 hit points. No one's attacked him up to this point. So he would, on 1 turn, move forward and hit the wall. The wall's gone, and he goes down to 2 hit points. Then a whole other player's turn passes. Now it's time for him to move again. He moves forward, hits the tower disappears, and the troll goes down to 1 hit point, but he's still alive. Once a monster is in the castle, they move clockwise whenever monsters are supposed to move. So at the end of the next turn, he moves forward, hits the tower's gone, and now the troll is gone too, because he loses his last hit point right here.
So we've simplified this a lot, obviously, skipping a lot of the main steps of a normal phase, but this is how movement works. And like Michelle said, when he moved into that space and hit that tower, that would be his last hit point. He would have died. So,
all right,
that's examples of how monster movement works. Now, but we didn't finish covering what happens if there are multiple monsters in the same space attacking the castle simultaneously. So
okay,
we're going to reset.
So in this example, let's say we had a troll, and let's bring one of the other monsters back. They're both in the same space in the swordsman ring. So they're both going to come up to that wall at the same moment. They both move forward. And you basically choose which monster took the hit point, loses the hit point. So the wall's gone because it was hit by the monsters. And it's kind of like basically one of the monsters went forward and hit it and the other just waited. So you get to choose either the orc or the troll to lose 1 hit point right now. So we gave that to the troll.
Now, they still occupy the same space.
Okay, so then the next turn passes, and then it's time for them to move again. They both move forward into the castle. And now that tower is gone. And again, you choose one of the monsters to lose a hit point because that's the monster that actually hit the tower. So it's your choice. Okay, so we gave that to the troll. Now the troll has 1 remaining hit point and the orc has 2 remaining hit points. They're now in the same space inside the castle. So this is really bad if you're playing the game right now because there are very few cards that can attack monsters in the castle. So they're going to keep moving clockwise now. Whenever it's time for monsters to move again, they move clockwise. So here they would hit that tower. And then again, one of them would lose a hit point.
Your choice. And so obviously, since I'm going to take these guys out because it's kind of crowded in there and I don't want to knock everything down, the troll has 1 hit point left. Let's go ahead and kill the troll.
Okay, so now only the orc is left still in the castle.
And he is in the space here because he moved. Now, as you can see, he still has 2 hit points. So he would still eliminate 2 more towers before he would die.
Right. So you want to try and avoid this situation. And in the future, we'll be going over the specific cards in the deck. And there are very few that do work in the castle. Most of them don't work to attack monsters in the castle.
So at all costs, you want to keep the monsters out. You want to rebuild walls if walls are destroyed, which I'm going to go over right now. And basically, the walls help you keep the monsters at bay an extra turn, because once the wall is gone, they immediately invade the space that the next tower is in. So as much as possible, you want to keep walls up and running. So resetting one last time. Now, like we said, in a normal game of Castle Panic, you'll have mostly these kind of cards, hit cards: red archer, blue knight, green archer, whatever combination of these basic hit cards. And like we said in the previous video, they hit 1 monster for 1 hit point. So you take 1 card and use that to eliminate 1 hit point. Obviously, monsters running into castle structures is another way for a monster to lose their hit point. And also, let's say, for example, this wall was destroyed by a monster. And let's say it was this orc. So he hit the wall, he bounced off of it, he now has 1 hit point remaining. However, there are these 2 cards that we haven't introduced into the game just yet. So here, on the left side, you can see a mortar card, which is that black stuff, I guess you call it pitch or whatever, that you use to put bricks together with. And over here, we have a brick card, which are obviously bricks. So it says here on the mortar card, play this card with a brick card to build 1 wall. And obviously, with a brick card, play this card with a mortar card to build 1 wall. So it's not very thematic to use 1 brick and some mortar to build a wall, but I guess that would make more sense to call it bricks.
Yeah.
But they don't want to confuse you in the terminology. It's a brick card. Anyway, so at not any time, during your play cards phase, which we're going to go over shortly, if you give up 1 mortar card and 1 brick card, this doesn't work if you just have the brick by itself or if you just have the mortar by itself. You have to have both. If you ever give up 1 mortar and 1 brick, then you can rebuild 1 wall during your turn. And so that orc who crashed into the wall on the previous player's turn, now on his turn will crash into the wall again. The wall will be gone after you use these cards to build that wall, and then the orc will have died.
So on the previous player's turn, he crashed into a wall and was injured, and the wall was gone. Now on this new player's turn, he'll have another wall that he'll crash into when he moves forward.
Okay, so that was everything about walls, and also regarding monster movement in regards to castle structures. So now we're going to move on to, over here, as you can see on the board, the order of play, which is basically a simpler term would just be the summary of how a turn works for 1 player. So as you can see, it has 6 steps. We're going to go through these step by step. And at the beginning of the game, in a 2-player game, you would start off with 6 cards for each player in a 2-player game. For a 3 to 5-player match, you would have 5 cards for each of the players. And lastly, for a 6-player match, because it can't go up to 7 players, but in a 6-player match, each player would get 4 cards. So, and that's their hand size at the beginning of the game. So normally at the beginning of a game, normally Michelle and I are playing this game usually cooperatively with 2 players. So we would both start out with 6 cards. But just to demonstrate every single step, let's pretend it's another turn. And also, let me just stick some monsters randomly out onto the field, just so we have some interesting things happening at the same time. Okay, so we have a goblin, we have a troll, we have an orc. Okay, so let's just pretend I have these 4 cards. I have a red archer, a blue knight, a green knight, and an archer. So the first step, as you can see, summarized under the order of play text, is 1, draw up. So as I explained, in a 2-player match, I would draw up to my full hand size, which is 6 cards. So I would go over here to the castle deck. It's normally bigger than this, but this is just the example. So I'm going to draw 2 more cards to drop to 6. I got a brick card, and I got a mortar card. Obviously, I kind of staged this. So anyway, I'm just going to lay these out in front of me so that way we know what our options are. Just 1 second. Green knight, green archer, brick, and mortar. Okay, so these are all 6 of my cards. Now, I can see here, step 2, under order of play. So the first step is draw up. That's what you always do at the beginning of your turn. At the very beginning of the game, obviously, you don't draw up because you will start out with the maximum amount of cards that you can have. But step 2, discard and draw 1 card, optional. So, as you can see by looking at the board, we have a monster here in the green archer range, here in the green knight range, and here the red archer range. So we look here at my hand. I have 1 red archer card, so I will be able to make use of that this turn. I have a blue knight, which there are no monsters in the blue area right now, so that's kind of useless right now. I have a green knight, which I can use this turn. I have a green archer, which I can also use this turn. And as I explained before, if you have 1 brick and 1 mortar, you can rebuild 1 wall, and this wall has been destroyed on a previous turn. Obviously, this isn't exactly what the game will look like after so many turns have progressed. Usually there will be more monsters in this. But, so I can use all of my cards except the blue knight. So, usually during step 2, discard and draw 1 card. Like it says, this is an optional phase. But since I have no monsters in the blue area, there's a decent chance that it would be a good gamble for me to get rid of this blue knight, put it in the discard pile, which is always next to the castle deck, and to draw a new card, just to see if it's something better that could help me this turn. So I drew a red swordsman. That is not useful for me this turn, but it was a gamble. You never know if it's going to be good or not. So now I know that is what I have to use for my next phase. So let's go ahead and see here. Step 3. We have, what does that say, Michelle?
Trade cards, optional.
So, just like step 2, you don't have to discard and draw 1 card. Like it says, it's optional. But you can trade cards with anyone that you're playing with. So, in order to do that, let's go ahead and look at Michelle's cards and have a discussion with her and see if any of these would be helpful for me during my turn. So let's go here, 1 second.
So we can choose exactly 1 card to trade, where he would give me 1 card and I would give him 1 card.
So this red archer is mine. These 6 are Michelle's 6. So let's look and see. She has a lot of red swordsmen. What else do you have?
Red knight.
Not helpful.
So I have 2 red knights, 2 red swordsmen, a blue archer, and a green knight. So are any of those applicable?
We have a green archer. No, you don't have that. Green knight, you don't have that. And red archer, you don't have that.
I've got a green knight, actually.
Oh, you got a green... Oh, well, archer. Sorry. That's what I meant. So, red archer. I'm sorry. So, basically, none of the cards that Michelle currently has in her hand will be helpful for me. So...
oh, because you already have a green knight. Okay.
Yeah. So, basically, and that guy only has 1 hit point.
Yeah, I see that
If the troll had exchanged places with this goblin, then I could have hit him twice with 2 green knights. But because this goblin only has 1 hit point, I don't need her green knight. In fact, she probably needs the green knight for her turn, so that way she can hit the troll after he moves forward 1.
Right.
Okay. So, there's nothing here that I want, and also, basically, nothing here that I need or want. And also, you might also use this step to plan ahead for what your other cooperative player is going to do on their turn. but nothing here is that helpful. So we are not going to trade cards, step 3, because it is not the most beneficial move for us at this particular time.
Okay.
So now we are on step 4, play cards. On this phase, step of the phase, you can use whatever cards you have in your hand and use them in deterministic combat, or you can use them to do any of the other special abilities. Purposefully, in this example, we have not included any other special cards, but basically, we're just going to use all of these cards. So let's have Michelle use all my cards, and I'll do all the actions for her.
Okay, so we have a red archer. That's going to help with the orc that's in the red archer ring over there. So we would discard that red archer card. And that orc goes down by 1 hit point, so he has 1 hit point left.
So that goes into the discard.
Yeah, so we put that card in the discard, and then we have a red swordsman, but there's no one in the red swordsman ring right now, so we're not going to use that. Green Knight, we have a goblin in the Green Knight ring, so he's going to be gone once we discard the Green Knight card.
So he goes into the dead pile of monsters, and the Green Knight goes to discard.
Right. And then the Green Archer is also helpful because we have a troll in the Green Archer ring, so he goes down to 2 hit points.
And we discard the Green Archer.
And then finally, we're going to use that brick and mortar to go ahead and build a wall in the spot where a wall is missing.
Okay, so this goes to discard, and this wall comes back.
So this was a really good turn because we only have 1 card left. So you're allowed to play as many of your cards as you're able to use. There's no limit on how many cards you can play out of your whole hand.
And there wasn't any, you don't have to use all the cards that you can, like Michelle said. So if we wanted to, we didn't have to use all of our hit cards. We didn't have to use that mortar and brick to rebuild that particular wall. We could have used it in another location at any given time. But in our experience, when you play a game of Castle Panic, you usually want to play what you have, unless there's a specific reason why you don't want to.
Right.
So that was step 4 of a turn phase. Play cards, and I can't play anything else, and there isn't anything I wanted to hold back. So yeah. All right. Okay,
so we're ready for move monsters. Like we talked about, the monsters are all going to move forward 1 space.
So one way to eliminate redundancy, especially when you're playing this co-op game, is look at arc number 1, the piece of the pie marked 1, and then look and see what are all the monsters in arc 1. There's only 1 monster currently. If there were multiple monsters, you'd move all of them 1 space.
So this guy goes forward 1 space into the Knight ring.
Nobody else in 1.
No one in 2, so we don't have to move anyone there. We look at 3, we have 1 troll, so we move him forward to the Green Knight ring. Then no one's in 4, no one's in 5, no one's in 6, so we're all done with moving the monsters.
All right, and then the last step.
Number 6, draw 2 new monsters. So the game doesn't come with a bag for this. You can just make a pile.
Flip upside down.
And if you have a bag that you want to use, you might find that easier. And in the future, if you decide to get the expansion, that one also comes with a bag. And we'll talk about the expansion in the future.
So these are all the monster tokens here. They're not every single monster token in the game. There are 49 monster tokens in the game. Some of them have special effects, which we will discuss in another video. But these are just a sample of what you could get in the game. So this pile will obviously be a lot bigger when you buy the game. So let's just pick 2 randomly. Let's pick this one, an orc. And so the game also comes with a die. You roll the die to determine what arc that monster goes in. This goes into 3.
Okay, so he starts out in the forest in arc number 3.
It doesn't matter where you put it. It just has to be in the arc 3. So it could go all the way from here, all the way to here. So obviously if a bunch of monsters come out this turn, this could get completely full. Obviously you can cover up the 3 if you want, but yeah, for as long as you're rolling and placing monsters, you want to keep the 3 visible.
Right, so normally only 2 monsters come out, but there are some effects that might lead to more monsters coming out, so that's why there could end up being more.
Flipping up another one, a troll. 1. Okay, so he goes here. And yeah, so as we looked at step 6, that was 2 new monsters. So sometimes it's an effect, which we'll explain later. But these were 2 basic monsters. So he went into 3, and he went into 1 based on how we rolled. So now, as you can tell, the next turns, that's my whole turn. I've used up 5 of my 6 cards, and now the game would pass on to Michelle. And so, and like it says, draw up is at the beginning of your phase. So I would only have this red swordsman to contribute to Michelle if she wanted to trade with me on her turn.
Right.
So now, obviously play would continue, monsters would move forward. So, for example, if we had done move monsters when these monsters were already on the board, then it would have been go to step, look in pie number 1, move forward 1 that orc, move that troll forward 1, him forward 1, him forward 1, no other monsters. And when they first move into the swordsman ring, a monster never hits the wall. When they progress past the swordsman ring, that's when they hit the wall.
Right. Yeah. So at the end of my turn, this is how the monsters would then move. It's assuming they were all still on the board and I hadn't killed any of them.
Right. So yeah, that is an example of one turn of Castle Panic, obviously simplified. In the next videos, we're going to be discussing special cards, not just swordsmen, knights, and archers, but other specialized cards that let you do cool special moves and damage monsters in different ways. And also, we're going to be discussing all the different monster tokens, not just the basic monsters, but the more advanced ones, the bosses, and all the special effects. All right.
All right. Thanks so much for watching this video. And remember, if you enjoyed this content and would like to see more, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Board Game Tutors. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions or comments or clarifications. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Right. So we look forward to seeing you in the next video.
All right. Thanks. Bye. Bye.